It just keeps getting better as another Habs prospect that's flying under the radar, Filip Eriksson, is off to an insanely hot start in the Champions Hockey League over in Europe, a big tournament with about 30 European clubs, and he is one of the best players so far. We got to dive into that. Plus, Scott Wheeler released his rankings for the best fantasy dynasty players to draft this season, and the Montreal Canadiens are very, very well represented, including Demidov being higher on the list than maybe some guys that you might think. So we're going to dive into all that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. So we're going to jump straight into it, Jesse. I'm going to start with these dynasty rankings, and oh boy, it's a great sign. It's always a great sign. We know the Habs have some of the best prospect pools, and we've seen some of those prospect pools, one of the best prospect pools. Anyway, but we've seen these rankings of players all over the place. Corey Promnan maybe has Hudson and Demidov a bit lower. Some people have him a bit higher. Slaf versus Suzuki versus Caufield. Where do you rank him? Well, Scott Wheeler tried his hand at ranking them, and we're going to get into his recent article in The Athletic. Link down below, as always, because it's a really fun piece to read. But Jesse, I got to start. The first Habs player to show up on the list is at 20. By the way, Matvei Michkov, I think, was number 6 on this list. So, But here's the thing. He's going to play in the NHL this year, Jesse. Demidov's not even going to play in the NHL this year, and he is still the highest Hab. He is still ranked at number 20 in the Fantasy Dynasty League rankings. Not to mention, Caufield at 26, Suzuki at 27, Slaf at 31. Slaf ahead of a guy like Hischier, below Byfield. I'd have him above, but this is amazing. The thing for me, though, Demidov not even playing in the NHL this year, being that high, is unbelievable.
It absolutely is. My biggest takeaway from this list is having Demidov already ahead of Nick Suzuki.
Yeah.
Cole actually one spot before Zooks, and basically everybody else. So absolutely unreal to see. My second biggest takeaway from this is that there's a huge chance for Demidov to jump up this list. If we see a player like Matvei Michkov, who we know is the comp with Demidov all the time, who's going to be better, they're always going to kind of be battling out in that way. You have to feel like if Demidov ends up being better than Michkov, there's a chance where does he get into that top 5 range of best players under 25 in the league? Like, you'd have to say he has that opportunity. That opportunity to just take this huge leap up is absolutely there. So while this is a bold take, I would have to agree, even though Demidov is young, even though there's a lot of unknowns, you just have to feel like Ivan Demidov, with that skill, if he's healthy and has a stick, let alone a twig in his hands, this guy's going to be an effective hockey player.
I mean, yeah, like you're saying, you're looking at this list of all the young guys across the entire NHL. You got players up to the age of 25, 26 on this list, and he has at number 20, a guy that's 18 and not even going to play in the league this year. Unreal praise from him. And again, having Caufield above Suzuki is also a bit of a bold choice, Jesse. I think they're projecting him to really jump up in value because, in fantasy hockey, goals a lot of the time are worth a bit more than assists. They're harder to come by, so maybe that makes some sense. But we're going to get into a couple of other guys here, and I wanted to get a little further down the list, and that's him having Lane Hutson at 42. Not that far behind Slav, and I actually think very reasonable right here for Lane Hutson. Now, I also don't believe Reinbacher was on the list, unless I missed him. So, but at the same time, he has Lane Hutson above top prospects like Nikishin, lottery picks like Lev Shunov, Yakemchuk, and I know defensemen are, not as valuable in fantasy hockey, whereas a guy like Lane Hutson certainly is because of his scoring prowess, but he's ahead of a guy like Dylan Cousins, Matty Beniers. There's some high praise. The Athletic seems to have a very diverse opinion of Lane Hutson, but to see him on this list being ranked as high as he is among some other extremely talented players who are already proven in the NHL just again goes to show, like, man, Montreal has something very special brewing if these guys even hit even close to their potential.
He's getting some love, and while this is crazy seeing him at number 42, we can expect him, if he has a solid year, obviously he's going to climb up that, but what is so huge is we're seeing him ahead of somebody like a Jake Sanderson from the Ottawa Senators, who's more of like your traditional, everyday sort of defenseman, and a good one at that. Like, to have Lane Hutson already without having proven himself, in his own words, at the NHL level with, that is absolutely huge praise. But again, in this model, it really hot values point getting, just those offensive capabilities, right? And also, it's over the next 5 years that they're really making these projections that they feel like Lane Hutson can grow into a very solid player. Like, I mean, if we're looking at this list, yeah, you can say maybe there's going to be a bust here and there, but for the large part, it's really hard to point it out, and you can't objectively say there's a bad hockey player on this list. No. So this is amazing competition, and to see Lane ranked so highly is quite phenomenal.
And there's one guy I wanted to get into, one last guy, And it's more so not because of where he's ranked, but because of where the players around him are ranked. And, we did a lot of comparisons of Jake Sanderson to Cayden Guhle because for one season there, they had very similar point production. Then Sanderson signed a massive extension. Guhle kind of fell off a bit offensively, and Guhle signed a smaller extension, one that I think is going to much better suit the Montreal Canadiens. But you see him there cracking the top 100 at number 99, but Jesse, it's the players around him. Lottery picks like Sam Dickinson this year, Consta Helenius. You got guys like Bobby Brink, Jimmy Snuggerud, who are considered like top prospects. And then Kaiden, Lindstrom, the guy picked ahead of Demidov this year at number 4 in the draft. Guhle is surrounded by incredibly talented, very high pedigree players down here at number 99. So maybe just a brief segment on how Guhle, because I think this model really projects him to bounce back in terms of points, because we know he has that capability, but to see him ranked ahead of a guy like Lindstrom, maybe that's just because of Lindstrom's back issues. Still, Guhle's also injury prone. To see him among these guys, made me pretty happy.
Sneaking in, I'd say it's fair representation to have him here in this top 100 because Cayden Guhle, we don't quite know how good he is just because of the tough situations that he's been put in. So he's going to be one of these players we're going to say oh, how about that Cayden Guhle as this team gets better? But really, he's been good this whole time. It's just that support, maybe him not playing on his off wing, getting back to that left side is going to really help him a lot. And obviously that offensive production, that's the next kind of leap for him to take. But absolutely, you have to feel like that's a part of his game just because of his mobility. His skating is really going to allow him to get there, which you have to feel is really going to benefit him over time.
That's the thing. The skating, I think, has become underrated. This dude is very smooth, very fast. Sorry for the Eriksson video. I forget. You see bloopers live on this show. There's no editing. We're not cutting that out. That's staying here. So anyway, some great stuff. Let us know your thoughts on that list. Who should be higher? Who should be lower? Who should be there that's not there? We'd love to hear from you. But we're going to get into the Filip Eriksson stuff. It's always fun, Jesse, to talk about these prospects that we don't get a chance to talk about super often. Today, it's Filip Eriksson's turn. We did a couple of videos about him last year. He had a very interesting playoffs. He went up against Adam Engstrom's Rögle in the playoffs last year in the SHL. As Eriksson spent most of the season last year in the Swedish one, which is the second league in Sweden, and then was called up back to Vaxjo for the playoffs, where he actually had a 2-goal game, I believe, or at least one or two, something like that, 2-point game against Adam Engstrom and Rögle, really helping his team win. But now we're into the next season, and he's back playing with Vaxjo, and the big thing that he has done to start this season here, this is just his most recent goal, a tip in there, beautiful tip, can I just say, look at this, great top cheese, absolutely beautiful, and I want to highlight, it was Patrick Bexel, who's often on top of all this stuff here. He said Filip Eriksson is going top shelf with a tip in, 3 points in 2 CHL games. CHL is the championship or champions hockey league. It's, like I said earlier, I think it's 32 teams across Europe vying to see which team is the best. So this is a high-level tournament. And last year, Jesse, Filip Eriksson played in it. He had 4 points in 9 games. He already has 2 goals and 3 points in his first 2 games, standing out very much for Vaxjo this year. We were hoping for him. We were hoping to see a little bit of a leap from him because, again, he's not one of these super high-tier prospects. I think when we did our live stream, he was ranked by the fans as maybe like a D tier or something like that, maybe C. But I don't know, he's a bit smaller, but I think he could really put something together, and already he's showing a fantastic offensive touch that I kind of didn't expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And at just 19 years of age, the young Swede that plays center, right? He's showing an NHL quality type goal. Definitely hard for the goalie to stop that one right in front of the net like that. But just because we have such a plethora of young players, it's so easy to kind of sleep on certain ones where if this player was another organization, he would be much more highly valued because he's shown this steady improvement. No more so than even last year where he had his best year yet as a pro. He's able to get 24 points in 21 games while still same time showing playmaking, but also that goal scoring as well. He wasn't relying on other people all the time for those goals either. So can definitely make it happen on himself. Definitely with the Montreal system as it being so packed. It's going to be tough, but at the same time, he's doing everything that he needs to. This year's going to be a big one for him going into the CHL, seeing what he can kind of do at that next level, and you have to feel like that will really determine his NHL career.
I'm really excited to see how the rest of this CHL tournament goes, and then to see what he can actually do for Vaxjo this year, because again, he's one of these guys that's there's no real expectation. We just had Adam Engstrom come over. He'll probably end up playing the AHL or something, fight for an NHL spot. There's a lot of guys whose status is a bit up in the air, but it's always exciting to take a look at these guys to say, wow, even that Habs prospect, we haven't even gotten into Volokin yet. I don't think he's played a game yet, but that's coming up soon, Jesse. The VHL has started already. Makar Hanin's played a game. I think he didn't get a point in it. So it's we're starting to take a look at these guys. Things are coming fast. Let us know what you think about Engstrom, or not Engstrom, well, I guess him too, but Eriksson and some other Habs prospects that you want us to keep an eye on and maybe get some updates on as we go through the season. We'd love to hear from you down below because that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for the crazy support. We're already well on our way to 15K subs, and if you want to help us get there, hit the button down below. We'd really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.